All right, welcome to the deep dive. You guys sent us a really interesting set of sources this time, all about using quizzes in the classroom.
Yeah, really interesting stuff.
And well, our goal today is pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
To dive in and see what the research actually tells us about how well those frequent low-stakes quizzes, the ones teachers love to give, actually work in a real classroom.
Right?
We've got a meta-analysis to work with here, which is always exciting.
Always a good time, yeah.
So let's jump right in.
Let's do it.
The big question, I think, for a lot of us is, do these quizzes actually improve learning? I mean, it seems like they should, right?
It does, right. You know, you think about it, we've all heard about the testing effect, how just the act of retrieving information can really help solidify it in your memory, make it stick.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
And there's even research suggesting that testing yourself on old material can actually prime your brain to learn new stuff more effectively.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's called test-potentiated learning. And it's a pretty fascinating area.
So it seems like, intuitively, quizzes should be a win-win.
Right.
But like we often find here on the deep dive, the research isn't always so clear-cut.
It rarely is, unfortunately.
Yeah, some studies show really strong positive results from using quizzes, while others show much weaker effects. And some even suggest they might not be that helpful at all.
It can be all over the map,
It really can.
which is why it's so important to look at the big picture.
Absolutely.
And that's where this particular meta-analysis comes in.
Exactly. This is where we get to really see what's going on.
Yep.
And what's particularly cool about this one is that it focuses specifically on studies done in real classrooms.
Yeah, not just in some lab setting, but out there in the wild, so to speak, where all the complexities of teaching and learning come into play.
Right, with all the messy real-world factors.
Exactly. Things like grading systems, student motivation, the overall learning environment.
Okay, so let's get to the heart of it.
All right.
What did this meta-analysis actually find? What's the big takeaway about how well class quizzes work?
Well, when they analyzed 52 different studies with a combined sample size of almost 8,000 students, all in real classrooms, they found a moderate positive association between the use of these frequent low-stakes quizzes and overall academic performance.
Okay, moderate positive association. For
Right.
those of us who aren't statisticians, what does that actually mean?
So basically, it means that on average, students in classes that use these quizzes tended to perform somewhat better academically than students in similar classes that didn't.
Okay, so it's not like a night and day difference.
Right. It's not a magic bullet.
But it's a real trend.
It is a noticeable trend.
The noticeable positive trend.
Yep.
Got it.
And the effect size they calculated, which is called Cohen's d, was 0.42, which is considered a moderate effect.
All right, so there's a measurable benefit there.
There is.
Now, did they find any situations where this positive effect was even stronger, like certain types of classes or specific ways of using quizzes?
They did. And this is where it gets really interesting, I think, especially for instructors who are thinking about using quizzes in their classes.
Okay, let's hear it.
So first of all, they found a slightly stronger positive effect in psychology classes, with a Cohen's d of 0.47 compared to the overall average of 0.42.
Interesting.
Now, the reasons for that aren't entirely clear,
Right.
but it's a finding worth noting.
For sure, for sure.
The second situation where they found a larger effect is perhaps even more important for how we actually use quizzes.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
When the quizzes actually counted toward the students' final grades, even if it was just a small percentage, the benefit was even greater, with a Cohen's d of 0.51.
Uh-huh. Okay, that makes sense.
Right. It makes intuitive sense.
If it actually affects your grade, you're probably going to take it a bit more seriously.
Absolutely, and that increased effort and attention translates into better learning.
Right, it's not just a quick check-in. It's actually motivating you to study and engage with the material. Okay, so that's a good point for instructors to keep in mind.
It is.
Now, beyond just looking at the average effect on performance, did this study also look at how well a student's performance on the quizzes actually predicted their overall performance in the class?
They did, and that's another really valuable piece of information.
Okay, so tell us, if someone is doing well on those frequent quizzes, is that a pretty good sign they're going to do well in the course overall?
It seems to be.
Oh, really?
They found a strong correlation, an R of 0.57, between quiz performance and overall academic performance.
Okay, so that's a pretty strong link.
It is.
So those quizzes aren't just a random check-in. They're actually giving you a good sense of how well you're grasping the material.
Right. And that can be helpful for both students and instructors.
Exactly.
For students, Consistently acing those quizzes can be a good indicator that they're on the right track.
Right, it's a nice confidence boost.
It is.
And if you're struggling on the quizzes, it's a signal that maybe you need to adjust your study strategies.
Exactly. It's valuable feedback.
And for instructors, seeing how the class is doing overall on the quizzes can help them identify areas where they might need to spend more time or explain things differently.
Absolutely. It's a great way to gauge understanding and adjust your teaching accordingly.
Okay, so we've established that quizzes seem to have a real positive effect on learning, and even more so when they're graded and when students take them seriously.
Right.
But there's another really interesting finding in this meta-analysis that I think is worth highlighting, especially for students.
Oh, absolutely. This one is crucial.
Tell us about it.
They looked at the odds of a student actually passing a class that used these frequent low-stakes quizzes compared to a class that didn't use them.
Okay, so it's not just about getting a slightly better grade, it's about actually succeeding in the course.
Exactly. And the numbers were pretty striking.
Oh, what did they find?
Students in classes with quizzes were 2.566 times more likely to pass the class.
Wow, that's a huge difference.
It is. It suggests that these quizzes can make a real difference in helping students avoid failing.
That's a key takeaway right there.
It is.
So it's not just about getting an A instead of a B, it's about actually staying on track and succeeding in the course.
Precisely. It's about providing that extra support and accountability that can help students, especially those who might be struggling, to stay engaged and master the material.
Okay, so we've got a good sense now that quizzes generally work, and they work even better in certain contexts, like when they're graded.
Right.
But this study also digs into the why,
It does.
the learning theories behind why these quizzes are so effective.
It does.
And it gets pretty fascinating.
It does, yeah.
So let's delve into that a little bit.
Sure.
What are some of the key theoretical explanations for why quizzes boost learning?
So the study really focuses on two main ideas.
Oh.
The testing effect, which we've already touched on a bit, and then test-potentiated new learning.
All right, let's start with the testing effect. We know that retrieving information from our memory strengthens that memory.
Right. It's like exercising a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets.
Exactly. And quizzes force you to do that retrieval, unlike just passively reading or listening to a lecture.
Right. You're actively searching for the information in your brain, which makes it stick better.
Okay, now what about test-potentiated new learning? How does testing yourself on old material actually make you better at learning new stuff?
Yeah, that's where it gets really interesting.
It does. It sounds almost counterintuitive.
It does a bit. But the research suggests that by quizzing yourself on previously learned material, you're essentially preparing your brain to absorb new related information more effectively.
So it's like laying a foundation.
Exactly, like making sure the groundwork is solid before you start building on top of it.
Okay, so we've got these two big ideas, the testing effect and test-potentiated new learning.
Right.
But the research goes even deeper, right, to explain how these effects actually happen in our brains.
It does. Yeah, there are several theories that try to explain the mechanisms behind these phenomena.
Okay, well, let's start with the testing effect.
Yeah.
What are some of the main theories that try to explain how testing actually strengthens our memories?
One prominent theory is called transfer appropriate processing, or TAP.
TAP, okay.
The basic idea here is that the way you study should match the way you're going to be tested.
Okay, that makes sense.
So if you're going to have a multiple choice exam, practicing with multiple choice questions would be most effective.
Right, because you're training your brain to retrieve information in the same format that you'll need to use on the test.
Exactly. You're kind of honing those specific retrieval skills.
Got it. But there's a caveat here,
That
right?
is, yeah.
It's not quite as simple as just matching the format perfectly.
Right. The research on TTP is the main explanation for the testing effect has been a bit mixed.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there was a study back in 2006 by Carpenter and Deloche
Okay.
where they actually found that simply practicing with free recall, where you have to generate the answer yourself without any cues, led to better performance on a final test, regardless of whether the final test was multiple choice or free recall.
Interesting. So even if the format doesn't match exactly, the act of retrieving the information without any prompts can still be really beneficial.
It can, yeah. It suggests that there's something about that effortful retrieval process that's really key.
Got it. So it's not just about mimicking the test format. It's about actively engaging with the material and trying to recall it from scratch.
Exactly, and that brings us to another really important theory,
Okay, let's hear it.
the elaborative retrieval hypothesis, or ERH.
All right, ERH, what's the gist of this one?
The core idea here is that when you try to recall information, especially when it's a bit challenging. Your brain doesn't just passively search for that one piece of information.
Okay.
It actually activates a whole network of related concepts and ideas, creating a richer, more elaborate web of connections around that information.
So it's not just one isolated fact, it's connected to all sorts of other things in your memory.
Precisely, and that makes it easier to remember later on because there are more pathways, more mental connections that can lead you back to that information.
So it's like building a mental map with multiple routes to your destination.
Exactly, and there's a really interesting analogy that Carpenter used in a 2009 study.
Oh, I love a good analogy.
He compared it to retrieving the word bread.
Okay, bread.
If you're given the cue toast,
Toast and bread. Okay.
pretty obvious association, right? It's easy to make that connection.
Yeah, they go together.
But if you're given the cue basket,
Basket and bread.
it's a less direct link. You have to work a bit harder to make that connection.
Right, you have to think about it a bit more.
And because of that extra effort, the memory for bread, when it's cued with basket, is actually stronger.
Oh, really? So struggling a bit to recall something during a quiz can actually be a good thing.
It can, yeah. It's that effortful retrieval that really strengthens the memory.
Okay, so that's ERH. What are some other theories about how the testing effect works?
There's also the mediator effectiveness hypothesis, or MEH,
Here?
and the related mediator shift hypothesis, or MSH.
MEH and MSH, those sound a bit more technical.
They are a bit, but the basic idea is actually pretty intuitive.
Okay, break it down for us.
So MEH suggests that when we try to remember something, we often use mediators.
Mediators.
Yeah, think of them like mental bridges that connect a cue, like a question on a quiz, to the target information, the answer you're trying to remember.
Okay, so it's something that helps you link the question to the answer.
Exactly. And testing strengthens those mediators, makes those connections stronger.
Got it. So the more you test yourself, the more solid those mental bridges become.
Precisely. Now, MSH takes this idea a step further.
Okay, how so?
It suggests that when you fail to recall something correctly on a quiz, it actually triggers you to reevaluate your current mediator.
Oh, interesting. So you realize that the mental bridge you're using isn't working so well?
Right, and you start looking for a better way to connect the cue and the target information.
So those little failures on low-stakes quizzes can actually be really helpful.
They can be, yeah. They force you to rethink your understanding and find more effective ways to remember things.
And students who just passively study, they don't get that feedback, so they might not even realize that their current study strategies aren't working.
Exactly. They're not getting those little nudges to adjust their approach.
Okay, so that's MEH and MSH. Any other theories about the testing effect we should touch on?
There's one more that the study mentions, dual memory theory.
Dual memory theory. Okay, what's the core concept here?
So this theory suggests that we actually have two types of memory.
Two types.
Yeah, study memory, which is formed through passive exposure to information, like reading a textbook.
Okay, so that's the memory that comes from just taking in the information.
Right, and then there's testing memory, which is formed through the act of retrieval, specifically remembering the connection between a cue and its correct response.
Okay, so testing memory is more about the active recall process.
Exactly, and testing strengthens both types of memory.
Both types.
Yeah, so it's a more comprehensive way to enhance your learning.
All right, so that's a good overview of the testing effect. But we also have to talk about test-potentiated new learning.
Right, the idea that testing on old stuff can actually help you learn new stuff.
Exactly, so let's dive into that.
Okay.
What are some of the key theories behind that phenomenon?
So one set of theories is called resource theories.
Resource theories, okay.
And the main idea here is that by testing yourself on previously learned material and confirming that you understand it, you're freeing up cognitive resources, basically mental space, to focus on new information.
So it's like decluttering your mental workspace.
Exactly, like cleaning up your desk before starting a new project.
Okay, that makes sense.
And there's actually research that suggests this might be happening at a neurological level.
Oh, really?
Yeah, some studies have shown changes in brain activity after testing that are consistent with a reduction in what's called proactive interference.
Proactive interference, what's that?
It's when old information gets in the way of learning new information.
Oh, like when you're trying to learn a new language and your native language keeps popping into your head?
Exactly. So by solidifying those old memories, you're reducing that interference and making it easier for your brain to focus on the new stuff.
So testing helps you clear the mental clutter and create space for new learning.
Precisely.
Okay, that's resource theories. What other theoretical explanations are there for test-potentiated new learning?
Another category is called metacognitive theories.
metacognitive, that has to do with thinking about your own thinking, right?
Exactly. And in this context, it refers to how quizzing can improve your awareness of what you know and what you don't know.
Okay, so it helps you assess your own understanding.
Precisely. By identifying your weaknesses, you can then focus your study efforts more effectively.
Right, you're not wasting time studying what you already know. You're zeroing in on the gaps in your knowledge.
And there's actually research that suggests that students who are tested are more likely to adopt more effective study strategies.
Oh, interesting. So testing not only reveals what you need to work on, it can also help you learn how to learn better.
Exactly. It's a
Yeah.
powerful combination.
Okay, what other theories are there for test-potentiated new learning?
We also have context theories.
Context theories. Okay, tell us about those.
The main idea here is that testing creates a specific mental context, like a mental file folder, for the information you're being tested on.
Okay, so it's like organizing your knowledge into different compartments.
Exactly. And having that distinct context for the old information makes it easier to keep it separate in your mind when you're trying to learn new information.
So it's like preventing those mental file folders from getting all mixed up.
Precisely. And this can help you avoid confusing old and new information, especially where they're related.
Right, it's like having a clear separation between different topics in your mind.
Exactly.
Okay, so that's context theories. What about the last one?
The final category is integration theories.
Integration theories. Okay.
These theories suggest that testing on old information can actually trigger you to automatically recall that information while you're learning new material.
Oh, interesting. So the testing process primes your brain to access that old information.
Right. And when that happens, it helps you see the connections between the old and the new, which can lead to a deeper understanding and better memory for the new material.
So it's like building bridges between your existing knowledge and the new stuff you're learning.
Exactly. It's all about making connections and integrating new information into your existing mental framework.
All right, so that's a pretty comprehensive overview of the theories behind why quizzes can be so effective for learning.
It is.
But the study also mentions another more practical benefit of quizzes that I think is worth noting, especially for instructors.
Oh, absolutely. This one is important for classroom management.
Tell us about it.
The study found that if quizzes are given in class and they count towards the final grade, they can lead to improved attendance.
Oh, that makes perfect sense.
Right. If you know there's going to be a quiz that affects your grade, you're more likely to show up.
Exactly. And we all know that being present and engaged in class is generally a good thing for learning.
It is. So quizzes can have this added bonus of promoting regular attendance, which can indirectly benefit learning in multiple ways.
So it's not just the direct effect of the testing itself, it's also about encouraging students to be present and actively participating in the classroom.
Precisely. It's a win-win.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here, explaining why quizzes seem to work so well, but the study also acknowledges that there are situations where they might not be as effective.
Right. It's important to have a balanced perspective.
So what are some of the potential downsides or limitations of using quizzes?
One argument that's sometimes made is that if quizzes mainly focus on short-term memory and simple recognition, especially if they're multiple choice and given right after the material is covered, they might not fully prepare students for the deeper understanding and long-term recall that's often required on exams.
Okay, so the concern is that students might do well on the quizzes, but then struggle when they have to apply that knowledge later on.
Right. It's the difference between recognizing an answer you've seen recently and actually being able to recall it and explain it in your own words weeks or months later.
Right, so the worry is that quizzes might give students a false sense of security about their understanding.
Exactly. But the study actually pushes back on this argument a bit.
Oh, really? How so?
They point out that there's actually research showing that well-designed multiple-choice tests can be effective for learning.
Okay, so it's not necessarily the format itself that's the problem, it's how it's used.
Right, and their overall findings of a positive effect from quizzes don't really support this idea that there's a mismatch between the type of learning that quizzes promote and the type of learning that's needed for exams.
So it seems like the key is to make sure the quizzes are designed in a way that actually promotes deep understanding and not just superficial recognition.
Exactly. It's about asking good questions that require students to think critically and apply their knowledge.
Got it. Now, what about other potential limitations of quizzes?
Well, the study also mentions that it can sometimes be difficult to isolate the specific effect of quizzes in real classroom settings.
Okay, why is that?
Well, for one thing, in some classes, students might be doing well overall with or without quizzes.
Right, so it might be hard to see a big difference in their performance if they're already excelling.
Exactly, and in those cases, the effect of the quizzes might be masked by other factors.
Okay, so the quizzes might still be beneficial, but it might be harder to measure that benefit in a statistically significant way.
Right, and another factor is that the higher stakes in real courses might lead students to use other effective study methods even if there aren't quizzes.
So they're already motivated to study hard, regardless of whether there are quizzes or not.
Exactly. So again, it can be difficult to tease apart the specific impact of the quizzes in those situations.
Okay, so it's important to keep those complexities in mind when we're interpreting the research.
It is.
But overall, the evidence seems pretty clear that quizzes can be a valuable tool for learning. Now, let's move on to what I think is a really key part for anyone who's thinking about using quizzes, whether you're a teacher or a student.
Okay, what's that?
The factors that influence just how effective those quizzes are.
Right, because it's not just about giving any old quiz. There are certain things that can really boost their impact.
Exactly. So what did the study find? What are the key things that make quizzes more effective?
So the meta-analysis actually identified several factors that had a significant effect on quiz effectiveness.
Okay, let's hear them.
First, as we've already discussed, whether or not the quizzes count towards the final grade makes a big difference.
Right. We saw that the effect size was larger when quizzes were graded.
Exactly, and that really highlights the importance of motivation.
Makes sense. If it matters for your grade, you're going to put more effort into it.
Precisely. And that increased effort leads to more engagement with the material and ultimately better learning.
So even if it's just a small percentage of the final grade, making those quizzes count can really boost their impact. Okay, what's the next important factor?
The timing of feedback.
Give feedback. Okay.
The study found that quizzes were more effective when students received feedback immediately, rather than having to wait several days or even weeks.
Okay, so right after the quiz, you want to know what you got right and what you got wrong.
Exactly. Because that immediate feedback allows you to correct any misunderstandings right away and reinforce the correct information while it's still fresh in your mind.
Right. It prevents those misconceptions from taking root.
Precisely. And it also helps you identify areas where you might need to focus your study efforts.
Okay, so immediate feedback is key. What else?
The format of the questions also matters.
The format. Okay.
The study found that constructed response questions, the ones where you have to actually generate the answer yourself, were more effective than multiple choice or fill-in-the-blank questions.
Okay, so instead of just recognizing the correct answer, you have to actually retrieve it from your memory and formulate it in your own words.
Exactly, and that deeper level of processing tends to lead to better learning.
So it's not just about picking the right option from a list, it's about actively thinking about the material and expressing your understanding.
Precisely.
All right, what about the frequency of quizzes? Does that matter?
It does. The study found that more frequent quizzing, like having a short quiz at the beginning of every class, was associated with larger learning gains.
Okay, so little and often seems to be the way to go.
It does. Yeah, those regular checks on understanding seem to be more effective than having fewer, longer quizzes.
Right, it's like keeping the material top of mind and preventing those gaps in knowledge from forming.
Exactly. And it also aligns with some theories of motivation, where having those more frequent, smaller goals can be more motivating than having one big, distant goal.
Okay, so that's frequency. What about the way the quiz is delivered? Does that matter?
It seems to, although the researchers noted that this was more of an exploratory finding and needs further investigation.
Okay, what did they find?
They found that online quizzes seem to have a larger positive effect compared to quizzes given using clickers in the classroom.
Interesting. So taking the quiz online might be more beneficial than doing it in a traditional classroom setting.
It seems that way, although the reasons for this aren't entirely clear.
Right. It could be the format of the online quizzes, or maybe the environment itself is more conducive to focused attention.
It's possible. Yeah, more research is needed to really understand why this difference exists.
Okay. What other factors did they look at?
Another interesting finding, again, one that needs more investigation, was that announced quizzes seem to be more effective than unannounced quizzes.
Oh, that's a bit counterintuitive. You might think that surprise quizzes would be a better test of actual understanding.
You would think so, but the researchers suggest that knowing a quiz is coming might actually encourage students to prepare more thoroughly.
Okay, so the anticipation of the quiz might actually be a good thing.
It might be, yeah, it could lead to more focused study and more effective retrieval practice.
Got it. Now, what about the subject matter itself? Does that play a role in how effective quizzes are?
It seems to. As we mentioned earlier, the study found that the benefits of quizzes were stronger in psychology classes compared to other subjects.
Right, so it's not just about the quizzes themselves, it's also about the context in which they're used.
Exactly. And the researchers speculate that this might be because students in psychology might underestimate the difficulty of the material and therefore don't study as effectively without the regular feedback that quizzes provide.
Okay, so the quizzes might be serving a more important motivational function in those courses.
It's possible, yeah. And another possibility is that other subjects might rely more heavily on other forms of assessment, like homework assignments or lab reports, that already provide regular feedback, so the added benefit of quizzes might be less pronounced.
So it's all about finding the right balance of assessment methods for each particular course.
Absolutely.
Okay, this has been a really thorough exploration of the research on class quizzes.
It has.
So let's bring it all together. What are the main implications and practical takeaways for our listeners?
Well, the main takeaway is that the research really supports the idea that the testing effect and test-potentiated new learning are real, and they can be harnessed to improve learning in real classrooms.
Okay, so the evidence is pretty strong that quizzes work.
It is. And if you're an instructor, these findings suggest that it's definitely worth considering incorporating frequent low-stakes quizzes into your courses.
Right. They're relatively easy to implement, and they can have a real impact on student learning.
Exactly. And for students, the message is that those quizzes aren't just busy work. They're actually a valuable tool that can help you learn more effectively and ultimately succeed in your courses.
Right. Those quizzes can be your friend.
They can be.
And remember that finding about lower failure rates in classes that use quizzes, that's really significant.
It is. It suggests that these quizzes can provide crucial support for students who might be struggling.
And for both students and instructors, it's important to remember that strong correlation between quiz performance and overall academic performance.
Absolutely. How you're doing on those quizzes can be a really good indicator of how well you're mastering the material and how you're likely to do in the course overall.
So pay attention to those quiz results. They're not just a grade, they're valuable feedback.
They are.
All right, so to sum it all up, the evidence suggests that quizzes generally work, especially when they're graded, when you get immediate feedback, when they use constructed response questions, and when they're given frequently.
That's a great summary.
And if you're looking for a way to boost your learning or your teaching, incorporating these types of quizzes is definitely worth a try.
It is. It's a relatively low-cost, high-impact strategy.
So here's a final thought for our listeners.
Okay.
Given all that we've learned today, what adjustments might you consider making in your own learning strategies or your teaching methods? How can you best harness the power of retrieval practice to enhance your learning or your students' learning?
That's a great question to reflect on, and we hope this deep dive has given you some valuable insights to help you make informed decisions about how you approach learning and teaching.
Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive.
It's been a pleasure.
We'll see you next time for another deep dive into the fascinating world of learning and cognition.
Until then,
Take care.
bye.